maybe it's time to think about dimming the sun. Now, this is something that doesn't go down very well in certain quarters. It makes them sound insane. They accept that it makes them down. So what the first thing you do when you have to support an insane proposition is you give it a better name. And so what they call, and preferably an acronym, they call it SRM, Solar Radiation Management.
It's now time for a regular check-in with Tom Whipple, who is our resident science guru. Tom, welcome. How are you surviving in this horrific heat?
Well, I mean, you may, by the end of this, you may decide that I'm not surviving at all well, and I have actually gone insane. I believe I have a solution to the nut zero problem. And for that, I am going to take you back, of course, to the year 536 AD. I'd imagine you remember it well.
I do. There are many people in the House of Lords who remember it very fondly.
Yes, of course, yeah, in their pomp.
It was a cold morning.
Well, it was a cold morning. As Procopius said, there was a most dread portent. The sun gave forth its light without brightness. Apologies, and there's my dog in the background agreeing with that issue. This was a year when in China, the flooding got so bad that they said the toads and the frogs croaked in the trees because they'd been carried up there by the floodwaters. In the land below, people resorted to cannibalism. In Ireland, the harvest failed. But more important for us, it was a bearable summer. They were not going around the middle aisle of Lidl looking for air conditioning units. Cannibalism, suboptimal, toads in the trees, weird, but so what? So how did they achieve this? And they achieved this thing by having a volcanic eruption. It threw up dust into the atmosphere and it blocked off a bit of the sun. Now, how is this pertinent to us? Well, it's pertinent to us because scientists are tentatively, hesitantly saying, maybe it's time to think about dimming the sun. Now, this is something that doesn't go down very well in certain quarters. It makes them sound insane. They accept that it makes them down. So the first thing you do when you have to support an insane proposition is you give it a better name. And so what they call, and preferably an acronym, they call it SRM, Solar Radiation Management. And it's so non-insane that the Royal Society themselves have just put out a report on it. And look, the argument is this, and it's compelling, and there are massive, massive caveats, obviously. The argument is, for a few tens of billions of pounds, if you got sulfur dioxide high up enough using planes, you could use that to reflect enough of the sun to buy us time. You could probably drop about a degree. That's what the models suggest, and these aren't just models, because we know from not merely the 536 AD eruption, but the 1815 Tambora eruption that created what's known as the year without the summer. That was when Frankenstein was written, because they all got so bored on Lake Geneva that the Shelleys decided to write novels. When that happened, we dropped about a degree. So we know that we can do it, and we know it would buy us time. Now, scientists, what I find interesting is scientists talking about this more. They haven't talked about it for about 20 years because they were worried it would make people think they didn't have to deal with global warming. Now, the problem is, at the moment, we haven't dealt with global warming, and we clearly need to buy time. So that's why this is being even at all mooted. But look, you're going to ask me, and so I'll preempt it just by answering it, what might go wrong? And what might go wrong is almost everything. So it might deplete the ozone layer a bit. We could probably cope with that. There'll be a bit of acid rain.
That sounds fine.
Acid rain we can probably cope with, because actually put up so much sulfur at the moment anyway.
Very good for exfoliating your skin anyway, it's fine.
Exactly. Diverting the monsoon, things that might end up having all sorts of micro, on the sense of non-global scale, climate actions on different countries will annoy people. The biggest one, aside from the fact that it might lull us into a false sense of security, is when we stop, because the world will keep on getting warmer. And when we stop, if we stopped it, the world would suddenly jump about a degree. So I concluded my piece by saying, basically, the position amongst scientists has shifted from "that's insane, we can't do it" to "that's insane, but we might have to at least start considering it. As one of them put it to me, if you're driving towards a wall, you know that using your handbrake isn't the best way to brake your car, but you're going to use your handbrake anyway if it's all you've got.
I think go for it. I am so dying in this heat. I think we should try anything possible to try and cool things down. I mean, how, on a serious note about this heat wave that we're in, Tom, I have done a number of discussions over the last week or so, and it does feel like this heat is pretty vicious, and it's quite a kind of terrifying level of heat. I'm about to get on the tube and I'm just sort of having palpitations about that. But I have been on with lots of people who've been like, oh, come on, you're just being snowflakes. It's totally normal. We're just all pathetic in this country. What is this unusual? Is this frightening? Should we be alarmed at these extremities, these heat extremities?
I mean, look, in one sense, it's fine in the sense that, we are sort of coping. It is unusual for Britain. Now, plenty of people will have gone to the south of France, which this isn't unusual, but we've built all of our infrastructure to cope with a climate that is changing. And, the worrying thing is that this is the coldest it's going to be for the rest of your lives. We are on an upward trend. The trend is happening. Now, the good news is that the world is making imperfect progress. It's likely plausible that this is the year when China's emissions will have peaked. Things are happening, but they're not happening fast enough to stop way beyond the 1.5 degrees that we pledged at Paris. I think we're probably on course for about 3 degrees. Gosh. And to give an example, because these aren't big numbers in the sense that, you can go from one day that's 3 degrees different from another, and that's fine. When the year without a summer, which sort of birthed Frankenstein, it was talked about for decades to come, that was a 0.7 degrees change. The one where the frogs were in the trees shouting, that was about 2 degrees change probably. So smallish changes do have big differences, but this is the choice we've made, and there are big choices to changing it. But at some point we're going to boil our own frog, and we're going to realize that really is too hot. And the truth is, the longer it takes us, the hotter we're going to get. And if we're going to do it anyway, then we're going to have to find a way to do it. But yeah, look, there are massive trade-offs, and places like Britain have become cautionary tales rather than exemplars, because we've gone faster and we've ended up with very expensive energy and deindustrializing. Yeah,
and we have just not, our infrastructure is just not at all suited for a hot climate. Now, I just want to read out a few messages. Marcus says, any form of geoengineering is illegal in international law unless there's a global consensus. Stop promoting approaches that violate international law. What would you say to Marcus, Tom?
Look, I don't know about international law. I'm the science guy. I don't think I'm promoting it. I think the strongest version of what I'm saying is that I think we should be starting to experiment and think about it. But I don't even know if that's true. It is mad. It is where we are, but it is plausible. And really, I'm reflecting the scientific opinion that more seem to be moving towards let's maybe consider it. But it would have to be agreed globally because it would have a global effect. The worry is that someone like China just says, sod it, we're just doing it for China. And then you start seeing all sorts of strange things happening. And maybe at some point, I've been chatting to scientists and some of them have been saying, maybe at some point someone's going to unilaterally do this, and then that's going to be even worse. But look, I quite agree. It's madness. But this is sort of where we are.
Okay, very quick final question. We have to go to the news. From Paul saying, hi Ayesha, please ask Tom what the average British person can do to stop global warming.
Oh God, I meant to sort of say, we can all do a bit. I think basically nothing. I think maybe sort of consider what policies are getting, consider what you'd like to see in a government, and that might be net zero. It might be one that promotes cheap electricity so we can electrify everything. But really, electric cars are the classic example. Until they were made cars that were desirable, no one was going to buy them and they weren't going to work. But now that electric cars are desirable, that's a bit of it that's solved. So I think we have to find a way to make this thing easy, because we're humans, and unless we do, it's not going to happen. A
final word to Stevie. He's got the answer. Let's all move to Dubai. They all seem to cope. That's because they've got lots of air conditioning, Stevie. Tom, great conversation. Thank you so much for your time. We'll speak to you again shortly. That's the wonderful Tom Whipple. And do check out his podcast, Making Science with Tom Whipple. Right, coming up after the break, we're going to be hopefully catching up with Sarah Vine. It's just gone 2:30.